So good evening, everyone, and thank you so much on behalf of the Jersey City Free Public Library College and Career Readiness Department. Tonight we have Ebony Tyler from Liberated Success presenting the Succeeding in the Workplace workshop series, and tonight's series is based on workplace technology. I'm going to turn it over to Ebony.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone. Again, I'm Ebony Tyler, founder of Liberated Success, and I'm going to share my screen. So we have a warm-up question, which is, what technology blunders have you had? So we've been on Zoom for 19 months. And I'm sure you've had a little blunder with technology. I know I have. So I just wanted to hear a little bit about what you've experienced. So you can drop that in the chat, and I can go first. So 20 months, 19, 20 months, we are on Zoom, and I'm still sometimes talking while I'm muted. And also, I live in a multi-generational home, and sometimes my family does not care if I am on Zoom. Can everyone hear me? Can you put a thumbs up if you can hear? Am I cutting out? Am I okay? Good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, good. So sometimes my family does not care that I'm on Zoom and I'm doing a meeting, and every now and then someone will just walk up to me and start talking. Or my grandfather will say, "Can you turn off my TV?" So that's kind of something that happens frequently, and that's, a technology thing. And that's being, in a pandemic and working from home. Fatima says she can relate. Anyone else want to share any technology blunders that may happen to you, being virtual, school-wise, work-wise? All right. If not, that's okay. We can come back. You can share maybe later on. So welcome. This is Succeeding in the Workplace. This is a webinar series, and this series is designed to build your career toolbox. And what you learn in these sessions will be able to help you in any industry, any internship, any employment, any college setting, any vocational training session. And our last session, we talked about communication in the workplace and workplace culture. And tonight we are going to talk about workplace technology. But before we begin, I always like to go over our community agreements because we are together for 60 minutes. So I always ask folks to be present, right? We're sharing this virtual space for the next 60 minutes. Be here, be in the moment, fully enjoy the experience as this is our time together. Be curious, be open, be respectful, call people in, not call people out. I like to say throw sunshine, not shade. Assume best intent, right? Give people the benefit of the doubt. If there's something that you hear that you're like, wait, did they really just say that? We can always ask the person to elaborate on the statement. Maybe say things like, can you tell me a little bit more about this perspective, or I'm unfamiliar with this. And then take space, make space. We want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. So if you're usually quiet, I challenge you to take up some more space and bring your voice into the room. And if you usually talk a lot, be mindful to leave space for our quieter colleagues to join the conversation. And then one mic, right? It's really hard to hear if we're all chatting at the same time. And then lastly, always speak from your own experience. And these are just really good practices to have and to develop that muscle for them when you're definitely, in virtual spaces or just in community with people that you don't necessarily know. All right, so our session goals for tonight is we want to understand what is workplace technology, just identify some strategies for writing an effective email, and then navigating online work community. Welcome, welcome everyone. I see people joining. Glad to have you here. So when we say the phrase workplace technology, what comes to mind?
Sorry, I'm late.
That's okay. Good to see you. What comes to mind when we hear workplace technology? What do you think of?
When I hear workplace technology, the first thing I think of is like maybe messages or emails sent by my boss or employer.
Definitely. Emails, messages. Anyone else?
Zoom.
Zoom. Yes. One more. Can I get one more person?
What are we talking about?
When you hear workplace technology, what do you think of?
Google Meets can be one.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you. All right. So workplace technology, right? That encompasses everything. Copiers, fax machines, phone systems, computers, computer software, internet, intranet, instant messenger, right? And internship supervisors, employers, colleges, they have the expectation that you will know how to use this technology with integrity, with fidelity, that you will not abuse your access to these items. So we're going to go through them. We're going to go through each one of them. So what's this?
A printer, I hope still.
Right, exactly, right? Printers, copiers, scanners, fax machines, right? Those things are still in the workplace, right? Sometime I remember once a student who was at one of the offices that I worked at, we asked him to fax something and he was like, fax? What is a fax? Had no idea, right? So internships and supervisors, they don't want their staff abusing the printers, the fax machines, the scanners, the copiers. And a lot of employers are still using fax machines. Does anyone can tell me what a fax machine is? There's apps for it, but a lot of workspaces still haven't caught up. What's a fax machine? What's a fax?
Electronic transportation of data.
Yes, electronic transmission of data. Yes, you put the paper in, it makes a copy, it sends it through the computer, and then the other person gets it on the other end. Now there are apps for that, but a lot of workplaces are still using fax machines. Phones are part of workplace technology. We got business phone systems. There are multi-line interconnected phone systems, which allow for specialized features such as call transferring, conference calling, shared voice mailboxes, and it also may involve an internet connection. So it allows for more advanced features such as integrated text messaging, voicemail, email systems, there's audio conferencing. A lot of workplaces are still using conference calls, even though we're still in these COVID times, but they'll social distance, but they still may have that that apparatus on the table and have a conference call. So this is the conference calls are meetings between different locations occurring by way of special telephone connections, and it's most successful for short discussions when participants are notified ahead of time, and these things should be scheduled like their regular meetings. So the biggest complaints of employers are the use of cell phones in the workplace. So when I started working many moons ago, it was being on the company phone, making personal work phone calls, right? You know, calling your friends, calling your mom, you know, handling other business that's not related to the job on the company phone. But now the biggest complaints are young people on their cell phones, right? And, you know, so that means that like being on your phone in the workplace looks different, but it's anything that has your head down. You know, if you're texting, if you're scrolling social media, if you're watching YouTube, that's the biggest complaint about employers around young people is that they're always on their phone. They don't want to see that. So a good rule of thumb is always just Put it in your pocket, pull it out when you are on break. Any thoughts around that? Oh, Fatima says using your cell phones during meetings. Yeah, that's a
I have
that's a
some
big
thoughts. I would like to share that I feel like everything is kind of meshed together, like personal and work is now meshed together. So there are times where I use my phone for work-related calls, right? Whether it's a call, now people text about work, or email through my phone because I am outside of the office. So I feel like it's difficult to know or to set kind of that boundary because we use our phones for everything, whether it's life or work or extracurriculars. So any tips on that would be helpful, kind of just the way to set boundaries and healthy habits in general.
Yeah, I thank you for that. That is an excellent point, that the lines are blurred. So I always suggest, like, a good rule of thumb is like, what are the business hours of the organization that you're working at, right? So a lot of jobs are 9 to 5. So obviously 9 to 5, you should be expected to like return text messages or phone calls or emails around that job, right? But like, if those things are happening at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and it's bleeding into your personal time, then you have to develop stronger boundaries to be able to say, right, like, I'm going to respond to these things during this time because I'm working with you, right? This is the time that we've allotted for me to work. But, 7, 8 o'clock, I'm with my family. So it's going to be really, really hard for me to not answer those emails or those phone calls. One of the things that I used to do was I would uninstall the apps on the weekend, right? So like my office, we used Microsoft Outlook. So I would just take it off on the weekend to kind of like stop myself from always checking, because the phones and everything, like, it's really addictive and you're just prone to check. But I think also it's really important to understand the work environment and what is expected. Any other comments or concerns or questions around that? You're welcome. All right, computers. They're everywhere, right? And computers, they enhance virtually all workplace tasks: communication, task management, research, marketing. Now, a fun fact is that the first programmable general purpose computer, it weighs 30 tons and it costs $400,000 to build. So we've definitely come a long way with computers. And so the hardware, right? That's the actual physical element of the computer. And then you have the supportware, the software. Now, a good idea is, if you're working in an office, don't install anything, right? Don't bring your headphones and, or your speakers and plug them up into their computer. Folks don't like that. They don't want you tinkering with their hardware, and especially with their software, right? So don't install microphones, don't install webcams, don't install light up keyboards to like make the work environment, more comfortable for yourself. Whatever your employer gives you as your work environment tools, your computer, that's what you need to use, okay? If you need something extra, such as, like an accommodation, that's something that you have to ask for your employer to be able to provide you with an accommodation should you need it. If you have, a disability, or if you needed to be able to do your work. Now, software, that refers to how the actual computer is going to operate. And again, rule of thumb, don't download anything. Whatever your computer software is, that's what it is for the work environment. So don't, download anything like maybe you like to use Microsoft, Word, and your office uses Google. You don't want to change up, right? You want to stick to whatever the office or the company has dictated. Any questions around this type of technology? All right, let's keep going. So internet versus the intranet. Does anyone know what the difference is? So the dictionary defines the internet as an electronic communication network that consists of computer networks and organizational computer facilities around the world. And the internet, they like to say that the birthday of the internet is January 1st, 1983, right? That's considered the official birthday of the internet. But the intranet is a local area network, right? So it's used for everyone within an organization or a company. It's not accessed for the public, right? So like the library system may have their own internet that's just intranet, which is just for the employees of the library. And it's a good way for large organizations to be able to share new policies, products, benefits, positions that may be available. And usually with the intranet, you cannot access it from outside of that organization. They may have like message boards, different like website portals, company news, forms, personnel information, such as like vacation time or any time that's remaining. So a lot of large organizations have that. And Ashley, can we share the video now? I want us to watch a quick video on cybersecurity in the workplace. And then I want us to be able to talk about what we noticed.
The purpose of security awareness training is to make all employees aware of information security policies, help us deal with problems when they arise, and to meet our compliance training requirements. We can have all the systems and technical controls in the world, but if we, as human beings, fail to follow our policies and security practices, then the whole system breaks down. So first, what's the risk? What's the big deal? Well, there's a monetary risk. Your company could be fined if you're not found compliant with the laws in place. There's also a legal risk if an employee violates the law, knowingly or unknowingly, and that risk extends to both the company and the individual. Most importantly, though, there's a risk of damaging the company's reputation. You've seen it plenty of times, where very big companies end up in the news due to data breaches, and you don't want that to happen. There are a number of technology-related reasons for data breaches, such as new viruses or malware, but the overwhelming number of data breaches are caused by human error and carelessness. A sensitive document is left out in the open, a computer is left unattended for a few minutes without password protection, sensitive information is sent over unencrypted email without a password. Another cause of breach is social engineering. Techniques can be as simple as calling a company office, claiming to be from another company location, and asking for protected information. It's surprising how often this works. Let's discuss some specific actions you can take. 1. Update your antivirus and anti-malware software. 2. Don't install unapproved software. 3. Keep your computer's operating system current by installing updates when you are notified of them. 4. Log off or lock your computer screen when not in use, and make sure to use a password-protected screensaver. 5. Physically lock up documents that contain sensitive information when not in use. 6. Adopt a clear screen, clear desk approach to your work. 7. Never write your passwords down. A password written on the sticky note on your monitor is the same as not having a password at all. And 8. Never open email attachments that come from people you don't know. The key is to make security a habit and to report suspicious or potential security issues to your local information security officer. Work on making security a habit and help protect all of your company's data, resources, and reputation. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching.
Thank you. So what stood out? Did anything stand out for you?
There are many companies whose their personal information would go to the public because they would think they're getting something from a different company, but instead it's just like a person trying to get their personal information.
Yeah. I sometimes get like these text messages that'll say, oh, we suspect activity from your bank. And I know that my bank doesn't communicate that way. So there's so many different ways that hackers are trying to get your information. Anything else stood out? Thank you.
I think for me, the consequences, right? It's not just monetary, but when an organization builds up a reputation, especially around serving families, you know, losing that credibility with the public plays such a big role in the way that that organization is able to move forward after that happens.
Exactly, right? Like if we're not just practicing good habits in terms of making sure that our computer is password protected, making sure that we're not leaving information out. Those things always they can jeopardize. Oh, yes, Ashley put in the chat that there's going to be a cybersecurity workshop. That looks good. I'm gonna check that out as well. So cybersecurity, right? It's really a habit, right? So all of these things are just habits that we want to start doing, so that way it strengthens us in the workspace. So now let's talk about what are some of the software applications that are used in the workplace. So the most common one that's used is Microsoft Office, and that is Microsoft Word for word processing, Access, Excel, spreadsheets, PowerPoint. Oh, am I sharing? I'm not sharing my screen. Look at that. Another technology blunder. The second one is Google Docs. Are you able to see my screen now? Yes, great. Google. Right, so Google is another one, right? We have the docs, the sheets, slides, and also Microsoft Outlook and Google are the most commonly used email domains. So email, right? Email allows us to be able to send electronic messages, and we use email a lot, right? You guys you pretty much grown up with email. When I was graduating college, we were just starting to use email as a form of communication. Prior to that, we were, writing letters to people and going to the post office to mail them. But now we have email communication. And so, email. Your email handle, it represents. So the easiest thing for your email is your first name, your last name, add a Gmail. All right. Your email, it represents you. So I really want you to really understand that, because sometimes we have young people who have really, really creative emails, right? And you don't want people to make an assumption about you based on your email handle. So also, if you're using your school email, because a lot of schools give all their students emails, right? As your primary email communication for maybe internships, college applications, jobs, extracurricular activities. You're in high school, especially junior year, senior year, it's a good time to start transitioning away from that school email for other things outside of school, right? You may have created like a really great resume in your school email. You may have like a lot of resources in there. And as soon as you graduate, your school is going to cut off that email, right? Because every email costs an organization to be able to have that. So you want to make sure that you have all your stuff that you need post high school in a new email. So it's a good idea to start transitioning all of your things into your own Gmail account. All right, professional email guidelines. I don't usually like to use the word professional because I think professional is very subjective, right? It's on the end of the receiver, right? And then also professional is very cultural, but I do like this graphic, so that's why I have it up. So let's talk a little bit about emails. So we've got our professional, right? Our appropriate email handle, right? First, last name @gmail.com. Then we want to have our subject line, right? The subject line is to concisely convey the purpose of why you're writing. Email should not be written as text messages, okay? Even if you know the person, you always want to start with a greeting. Hello, dear, hi. If you don't know the person, you may want to use their last name. If you do know them and you guys have interacted before, you can use their first name. But always you want to start with a greeting. And then the length of your email, you want to keep your email as concise as possible, right? Because people tend to skim long emails, right? And they're just looking for the essential information. So you want to get to the point. Hello, hi, I'm writing you today because, right? Or I enjoyed the work that we did. And you want to have an ask, right? Why are you writing the person the email? Are you writing to thank them that they did something? Are you writing to ask them for a recommendation, right? We want to get to the point because people do not read long emails all the time. Okay, your font style. You want to avoid playful, colorful fonts, right? Because these things are a distraction. You want to avoid using bolds and italics. Makes it look too cluttered. You want to just write, you don't want to write your email in capital letters, right? Because that conveys that you're angry or you're excited. Just keep it simple. And then emojis. We don't really want to use emojis in our email, okay? It's not a text message, right? You want to save that for personal correspondence, right? People who you know, you have a rapport with, you guys are friendly. Save your emojis for them. And then spelling and grammar, right? Spelling and grammar also represent you, just as the way your email handle will, so does spelling and grammar, right? No one wants something that's sloppy, right? So you want to go ahead and read it over, edit it. Most email systems have spell check, right? Use spell check. There's Grammarly, to make sure that you have the right grammar, punctuation. And then closing, you want to sign off and say, thank you, best. I like to use best. It's nice and simple, to the point. Sincerely. What are some ways that you close your emails? I just want to hear what people use. And you can just unmute, share your voice with me. How do you tend to close your emails? Sincerely, your best. Regards. Yep, regards is a good one. Thank you.
I think it depends on how well I know the person or how long I've been talking to them for. So best regards, kind regards. Something I write also is with grit and gratitude, depending on who I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm. All the best. Yeah, those are really some good ones, right? So some extra tips, right? You want to make sure your message is complete. Double check, make sure the subject line of all your emails is filled in. Add your signature. Make sure you're contacting the right person. Some people like to do a blind copy to themselves so that they have a copy of the email. I tend to just go back and go to my sends. But, some people, that's a practice. That way they have a record of what they've done. You want to make sure that you're proofing your email, right? So before you hit send, spell check, grammar, capitalization. You can send a test email to yourself, right? To make sure that it looks right, that it's all like formatted nicely. And then again, another practice is to save it for yourself, right? what I really want to impress upon you is that emails should not be written as text messages. I have gotten so many emails where young people are like, Miss, are we meeting tomorrow? No hello, no greeting, right? No context about, what we're meeting about, right? So we want to make sure that our emails are straight to the point. There's an ask, there's a greeting, and then there's a closure. Any questions, comments about emails? All right, let's keep it moving. Calendar invite. Now, everyone's busy, right? Everyone's juggling multiple projects. You got school assignments, you got time with family, you got time with friends. But calendar invites are very, very important in the workplace. It tells people, it's your RSVP, right? It lets them know to expect you and that you are coming. Especially in this virtual world, right? The RSVP usually has the meeting link, either if it's going to be on Zoom, is it Google Meet, is it Microsoft Teams? So I have a lot of projects that I'm working on, right? So whenever someone sends me a calendar invite, I like to check to make sure that I know that this meeting is going to take place over on Google Meet. This is who I'm meeting with. This is the time that it's on my calendar. So a quick show of hands. How many people use calendars and as a form of their practice? Yes, Christina, Catherine, Ashley. All right. Yes, Gia, mostly to remember stuff. Yeah, like that's really the purpose of the calendar, right? Is to remember things. And it's also a courtesy, right? Like responding to someone's calendar invite is a courtesy. It's a workplace etiquette. And if you're going to be scheduling your own meetings, you want to make sure that you have a descriptive title, that you're including the location, and that you have something in the description so that the person who's coming to the meeting, so that way they know, okay? But the biggest thing is that the calendar invites are your RSVP. That's how folks know that you're coming. All right, a little bit more about calendar invites is that you don't want to change them last minute, right? Without folks knowing. Because then they may go to a different location, they may be on the last Zoom. So if you need to change things around a calendar, it's good to maybe send an email giving them a heads up that something is going to change in the calendar invite, that you're going to make an edit to it. All right, I'm going to drop a Jamboard in the chat, and I want us to just take a minute and let's think of some ways, some tips about workplace messaging and virtual meetings. Is everyone able to get on the Jamboard? And do you see the link?
Yes.
Okay. So there's 2 pages. The first one, and is to give one example of etiquette in a virtual meeting. And then on the second page is to give one tip on how to govern yourself on a workplace messaging. Those are the last 2 subjects that we are going to cover. So let's just take 2 minutes and let's add to the Jamboard. All right, let's keep it moving. Virtual meeting platforms and etiquette. All right, so we should all be experts, right? By now, we've been online for 19 months. But video conferencing, being on virtual meeting platforms, right? That's the ability for us to be in a meeting, right? We're on Zoom right now, right? So it's the ability for us to communicate via video and audio with video conferencing equipment, the necessary phone lines, right? Sometimes people have to call in on the phone instead of putting on their video. And there's lots of benefits to this, right? Like gives us to be in different places and still be able to meet with each other, helps us feel connected if we are working virtually. It allows us to be able to collaborate with others, especially like if your organization is very isolated or your school environment, but we can still get together and collaborate, right? It heightens and improves communication and increases the depth of understanding. So some common virtual meeting platforms are Microsoft Teams, Zoom, Skype, Cisco Web. They're using a lot of those in the workplace. So I also want to acknowledge, right, like when we're on video conferencing and we're at home, we're welcoming people into our home and into our space. So some tips. What are some tips? Can someone maybe read off what's on the Jamboard while I pull it up, or share what they put?
I can do that. Someone said, engage in the conversation if you can.
Thank you. I see there's identify yourself, your name, your organization, and your pronouns, and do not interrupt. Those are great tips. So I'm going to go through a couple of tips that we can always incorporate and have this part of our practice, right? The first is to test your technology. Log on 3 to 5 minutes to check that you are able to successfully log on, right? If you're joining an online meeting, right? You want to check that your webcam is working if you're going to be able, if you're going to use your camera, that your Wi-Fi is working, if you're sharing your screen, right? We want to go ahead and check on those things to make sure that they're running properly before the meeting starts, because you may need time to a little bit more time to sort out any issues, especially if you're not familiar with the meeting platform. So whenever I have a meeting on Cisco Web, I always try to like log on, 10 minutes ahead of time, because I'm still, not sure of that platform, because it's something that's new. Another tip is to dress appropriately, right? So even though we're working from home and we're, in our own spaces, you don't want to log on, right, in your pajamas, especially if you can have your camera on. So it's really, we want to be mindful of the way that we dress, right? And even if we just got on a good shirt and our pajama pants at the bottom, you never know if you got to like stand up and reach for something, right? Like that could be a big like, oops, right? I'm sure we've all seen some really embarrassing videos of people.
It's confidential.
Right? We've seen them, right? Take note of your background, right? And it's okay, right? Like you don't have a home office, maybe you share a room with your siblings, that's fine, right? Again, when we're virtual and we're at home, we're inviting people into our space, right? So the great thing is like Zoom's got these nice backgrounds, you can blur it, you can put a picture up. So when we first started working from home, I used to always make sure that I was like up against the wall, because I didn't want like my coworkers to see my teenagers always, walking back and forth, to the kitchen. So I had to make sure that I positioned myself, in a good way to be able to protect their confidentiality, And also, right, like the space in my home. Also, you know, again, like in the beginning, right? I said I live in a multi-generational home and there's always distractions sometimes, right? But you could like name those distractions for people, right? You can say, hey, the house is pretty busy today, you know, there's a lot of people inside, so I may, you know, mute myself, you know, I may stay off camera. And I think that when we acknowledge it and we say what's going on, it takes the pressure down a little bit, right? And then it also sets the tone that like I'm present, right? I'm still fully present, even though I may have my camera off, right? Like I'm communicating in the chat, but it's always good to like acknowledge these things. Elaine, did you have something to share? I thought I heard you.
No, this is great. This is the first opportunity I'm getting to really talk. And I don't know why I have such a fear of a machine, but I'm an older person and we don't really accept, you know, technology the way perhaps the other children and grandchildren, you know. So I find this an opportunity for me to learn in private while still being responsible as a member of a community.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I mean, I totally feel you on not being comfortable with the technology. Quick story, when you know, when we started with the virtual Zoom and stuff, my family would get together on Zoom. And my mom, she wanted to join, but she had like such a hard time getting onto the Zoom, and she didn't really want to do it, but like it was like 9 of us on there, and we literally just walked her through to be able to join the Zoom. And we're all learning, right? And the technology is gonna keep changing. So I think if we just like acknowledge like, hey, I want to join this space, but I'm dealing with the technology issue. Can you help me? Can you walk me through it? And I think that the young people, the teens, they like to show us how to be able to use it. I'm still trying to figure out like the jam boards and stuff like that to be able to incorporate into the sessions. But I know that like young people, they like those interactive points. All right, another tip is to look into the camera, right, when we're speaking with people, because it allows them to see that like we're present, we want to be here, right? And then also to pause, like to remember that when we're talking, if we're asking questions, we have to pause because there's a delay, right? It's not like the phone where sometimes it just comes through super clear. There's the internet, right? So we want to give that pause for that, right? And then also we want to speak clearly. So I talk pretty fast. I'm from Brooklyn, so I try to like slow it down. Go ahead. Okay, and then another tip is to mute yourself when you aren't talking, right? Because it's background noise, which is super impossible to avoid, right? You can have your kids in the background. You may have like dogs barking. We live in cities. There's so much things happening in the background. So just mute yourself when you're not talking and then unmute when you're ready to talk, right? And then also the biggest one is don't take your phone or your computer to the bathroom, right? You think you're on mute, right? You think you got the camera off, but you don't. And we've all seen those videos of people, right? We've seen them. So we don't want to be caught out there on the internet. All right, so chats and messaging. So messages, a lot of workplaces, they have their own little messaging apps, right? We've got Slack, we've got Teams, we've got Hangouts, we've got Discord. And these are ways for offices to just interact quickly with people. So some tips are, so it's going to require you to have a screen name, right? A screen name or an email, right? It's being used in a lot of office environments to be able to connect folks, right? So it increases productivity and efficiency when employees have a quick question or a request, confirming a meeting, asking, like I used it today. I wasn't sure we were having a meeting. So I sent my team member a message and was like, hey, are we meeting today? So it's for quick communication, something that you want a really quick response with, right? And these forms of communication, right, they're less time consuming, but they can be disruptive, right? So if you have never ever communicated with someone on instant messenger, you may want to say like, hey, sorry to bother you, but I have a quick question. Okay. They're also a very informal place. Okay. So again, these platforms are really good. They use them in the workplace again, but they're really good for when you're familiar with people, right? So I would never, like when I worked for the Department of Education, like I would never ever send the chancellor a instant messenger and be like, hey, this new policy that you made, I don't like it, right? Even if I was thinking that, right, I would never have reached out to them directly, right? Like you would never reach out to your principal of your school on instant messenger unless you have a very accessible principal and you guys have this type of, working environment, this type of relationship, right? So some of the things that you should know about instant messenger is you should know the person, right? You need to have been introduced to them before you start instant messaging them, right? You want to start with a greeting and saying hello, right? You want to be mindful of the person's communication style, right? Because instant messenger can be disruptive, right? For those who are on the receiving end, like the pop-ups. So I'm someone who doesn't, like during the day, I keep my phone off. I don't have it going off all day because I can't take all of the notifications from different things. So I always keep my phone on silent until I'm ready to partake in that activity, right? So you want to be mindful of that you instant messaging someone could be disruptive, right? Because it sends an alert to them. You want to keep the conversation short. So ask yourself, will this message require the receiver to take some time to think about their response, right? Because then if it does, this may be something that you want to email them about so that they can take time and they can respond more thoughtfully rather than going in depth in instant messaging, right? And then abbreviations. You don't really want to use abbreviations unless they're like widely known, right? Like, so everybody knows LOL, right? NP, no problem. But there's some that people have no idea of. So this usually happens when there's like a generational divide, right? Like young people, you guys have your own language and communication, right? Your short form, and then older people are always like typing everything out. So they may ask like, what does that mean? So you want to be mindful when you're using abbreviations, especially in instant messenger, right? Also, never send bad news on instant messenger, okay? Because you don't know how that's going to be received. Don't change meeting times, be aware of your status message, and end conversations with a short closing. Any questions, any comments or concerns about that? Oh, Ashley said that she wasn't able to get on the Jamboard because of it being disabled by her work browser. Yeah, those are things that can happen, right? Like your system administrator can control different things that you go on, right? So like when we talked about the internet and internet uses, right? Like some workplaces may block YouTube. And so this concludes the conversation today about workplace technology. And I hope that everyone was able to get something out of it and that you are able to use some of these strategies and incorporate them into your daily practice. Right? So I'm going to put in the chat our exit ticket. And this is just an anonymous survey. It helps Liberated Success create stronger programming. It helps us, you know, rethink some of the things that we added. So if you could just take 2 minutes to just fill that out for me, that would be great. And then lastly, we are back here October 26th, where we'll be talking about teamwork and collaboration and what that looks like in the workplace. So again, these workshops are designed to give you some insight into what employers are thinking about so that you can strategize for your future for yourself. Fatima says she loves the Jamboard feature. Great, thank you. And the survey is anonymous. So if you thought it was terrible, you can go ahead and say that. It's fine. And thank you for your time.
On behalf of the Jersey City Free Public Library, I'd like to thank Ebony Tyler for presenting today, and we'll be back on October 26th.